Hi, it's pre-recording Derma again. I've got another trigger warning for you. So, later on in this recording, there is a couple mentions of SA or sexual assault. There's no details given or anything like that, but I just thought I should let any viewers know that it is mentioned. So, as always, take care of yourself. What's up, every pony? It's finally time. It's finally here. Love and Ponystep, Vylet Pony's 2025 release came out Friday. I'm on record saying it would be coming out on Thursday. I just assumed that would be the case because the singles both released on Thursdays. But no, it came out that Friday. I was there for the premiere, and I have now listened to it all the way through a second time after that, and I've listened to disparate songs quite a few times. It's pretty much all I've been listening to these past few days, which isn't coming as a shock to me. But there's a lot to talk about. I figured there would be because Vylet Pony's projects are always dense, but they're not always 95 minutes long. So it's kind of tough to know where to even begin. But I can start by saying I like it. And the more I listen to it, the more I like it. It is tough for a piece of music to really capture me on a first listen. And admittedly, there were things that put me off on a first listen. I guess I can start with that because there's not going to be many negatives to talk about here. Dual-headed hydronoid. That is, at the moment, my least favorite song. It's not that it's bad. I have a friend who is frankly more knowledgeable about music than me and who just has good taste in music. I trust them a lot. I have them saying that it's it's a well-made song, and I can see that in a lot of respects. Of course, that's just standard for Vylet Pony. Her mixing is always kind of astounding, but what's really impressing me is that she just seems to get better at it with every record, and I don't know how that happens. I thought we reached a bar, but apparently not. Love and Ponystep is probably her best sounding album. It's very full, it's very dense. There's nothing that really sticks out or feels odd or out of place. Yeah, just incredibly impressive stuff on that front, which is especially astounding to me because this album came out not even a full year after Monarch of Monsters. And judging by some of the things she said, she's been working on it alongside Monarch and possibly even albums before that. But I still, I don't know. I guess music is just what she does. But apparently she's writing and doing art too. I don't fucking know. I don't know how she manages to make such quality works in such a short amount of time. She has ridiculous work ethic, I guess. Anyway, the album, Dual-Headed Hydronoid, it grew on me a little bit listening to it again, but I'm not a hip-hop guy, I guess. That's one of the big things, is I'm just not accustomed to that sound. And so, it obviously came off as abrasive and a little bit uncomfortable for me. I don't know if there's much more I can say than that. I just didn't like it that much. I'm sure I'll grow to like it more. And then, there's the track that follows, Worst Rave Ever, which also initially put me off a little, but now I really like that song. So I've compared Worst Rave Ever to a Charlie XCX song, and that could be a little bit ignorant of me because I've only listened to Brat, and I didn't even listen to it that thoroughly. That's just the vibe I got from the song. I'm not like super immersed in the world of pop and some of those influences that Vylet is clearly pulling from with Love and Ponystep. And that kind of gets into a thing that I do want to talk about regarding the album as a whole. But for now, I guess I can give more overall impressions. I don't know if there's much. Well, okay. A lot of my, I guess, obstacles to fully appreciating this album just came from expectations. Like, when I saw that the final part of the title track is titled Cutie Marks 2, I thought it was going to be some like self-indulgent, self-referential, just hodgepodge. Like, I thought we were going to be hearing so many motifs to Cutie Marks or something like that. I don't know. I didn't get what I was expecting clearly, even though there's tons of references to the Cutie Marks album throughout. Like in Walking Beside a Dragonfly, a sample that was used in Non-Existent Meet Cute. Falling in Love with a Corporate Illustration. There's a line near the end that references that same song. There's, what song is it? I think it's The Slow Dance. The chorus includes a line that references a digital dove. That's a reference to Wayfarer. There's another sample early on in the album. I'm not remembering what it is right now. I made a document, like, documenting the references. There's quite a few. And I have a suspicion that the like acoustic guitar melody in the outro to Love and Ponystep, the song, is very, very similar to the outro to Cutie Marks. Right, and the beginning of the second verse in Cutie Marks is just ripped in one of the songs on Love and Ponystep. I'm not remembering which one. I'll have to just like pause the recording at some point and look at those so that I can give more accurate details. But anyway, I guess I want it to be even more self-referential and self-indulgent, but I didn't get that. In general, I guess I was just expecting the title track to be something different. It makes perfect sense that the title track to Love and Ponystep would have a lot of dubstep. But that's just not what I'm accustomed to, I suppose. I'm more accustomed to like, this is the grand finale, we're going to make it all epic and dramatic type deal when it comes to closing / title tracks. So I was put off by that. Totally a me thing. And I don't know, some of the drops are also having a tough time sticking. And maybe that's just me not being used to dubstep quite yet, even though I've been listening to Vylet Pony for a little bit now. There's still some obstacles. There's still some things I'm just not like accustomed to hearing. And I'm sure I will get more accustomed as I listen to it, obviously. Again, when I got done with my first listen, initial impressions were like warm. I liked it, but I was also like skeptical of it. I'm willing to say now that it's a great album. I don't think I ever like expected it to surpass Monarch for me, but it's looking like that'll remain the case, but that's okay. I don't need every one of her albums to rival Monarch because that's like frankly unreasonable expectations. I think that album is kind of one of a kind, especially considering, like, you know, its place in her discography. It's so different from everything she's done. Put a pin in that too. But yeah, those are, you know, the things I didn't like as much, or just didn't stick with me. Dual-headed Hydronoid, the title track wasn't what I was expecting. There's some drops that don't do it for me, and there's a couple songs that just kind of don't stick as much, which is almost inevitable when you're making an hour-and-a-half long album. But I'd also argue that Monarch of Monsters doesn't have that problem. We'll see. They might begin to stick more the more I listen to the album and the more I listen to these songs. That's what tends to happen. Now, things I like. Ooh. Opening track, I don't really have a good memory of it. I've listened to it twice, but it's always like at the beginning of, you know, the album listen, so I'm not going to remember it very well. I'm sure it'll start to stick with me and grow on me. Then after that, you get the first, I guess you could call them interludes. And I like these. I like these quite a bit. It's something you can very easily do wrong, these like interludes. Because they can totally fuck up the flow of the album. They can just feel like a useless distraction. And it can be hard to like understand or appreciate the purpose of them. Because they're, you know, interrupting the music. And personally, I don't think they do that. I wouldn't entirely blame someone if they thought they did, but I thought they were quite good. For one, they're short, so they don't get in the way of the music too much. And for two, not only do I think what they have in them, like the content, is intriguing, but I think it's just well executed. Like, Vylet's dialogue for Vid feels really natural, and she's a character you can kind of immediately like get attached to and understand, especially as you get more into them, because in the first interlude, what you understand about her, if my memory serves me correctly, is that she fucked things up with someone somehow, and she has decided, well, nothing matters, so I don't know, fuck it, I'm gonna get fucked up. And Lodestar, I believe, is the name of the character, voiced by an Ultra Kill actor. I wish I could remember his name. He does a great job. Is there to say, oh, well, that's kind of a stupid idea, but I guess I can't stop you. Lodestar is the voice of reason throughout the album, and there's some good messages, the typical wholesome stuff, but I don't say that to demean them. I guess I just don't know how much more I can say without having everything in front of me, and again, talking about this on the fly. But no, and then you get more of her like personality through just the way she talks, the way she responds to Lodestar, and the choices she's clearly making to try to deal with this heartbreak. And yeah, you get endeared to the character quickly, at least I did. And so it makes the whole experience feel a little more like personal and real, and it makes the interludes actually interesting because you want to see what's going on with her. So I did like those. My Love is a Quick Scope, I like that song a lot. It was another one of those things on a first listen, it didn't do much for me. I was happy to say it was good. Now I think it's great. I think it's a really great song. Love the energy, love the mixing. It's very catchy. yeah. I can get into themes later, because these songs do have themes. After that is Dual-Headed Hydronoid. I gave my thoughts already. It's like kind of whatever to me right now. Worst Rave Ever, I think, is a really good song. There's an aspect to both that song and another one, Peace, Love, Glalie, that I wish I knew how to describe other than like bouncy. Like, it makes you want to headbang or move along to the song. Excuse my metal-centric terminology. That's where I come from. I'm a metal guy. And so is it any surprise that I came from Monarch of Monsters? Put a pin in that. But yeah, I love how bouncy those songs feel. It makes you want to move along to the song. There's something infectious about it. I like that a lot. After Worst Rave Ever is Right, Falling in Love with a Corporate Illustration. A very interesting song. I think most of what makes it interesting is that it's long. It's like almost 9 minutes long, and it is still an electropop song. And the most proggy thing about it is its non-standard song structure and its length. And so with that said, it makes the song a little hard for me to digest and fully appreciate. But what I can say is that I've been listening to that one quite a bit, and I've been liking it a little bit more after every listen. So I expect that'll end up being one of the better songs on the album for me. Or maybe not. Maybe it'll just stay in a, yeah, it's good territory. I do already have some favorites. I've kind of decided which songs I deem excellent. Because one thing I will say about this album, again, this is very likely to change with time because, you know, these things take time, is Monarch of Monsters has 2 songs that I think are masterpieces, which has never happened to me before. I've never once elevated 2 tracks on a single album to the status of like, yep, this is a perfect song, and boy, is it like fucking moving to me. I think this is one of the best songs I've ever heard. You know, that type of deal. And then even aside from that, I think Monarch of Monsters has at least a couple more songs that I deem like top tier. Carousel, I think the last 4 tracks all fit in the top tier territory. And then I think Creek Flow is a masterpiece. Cutie Marks has some really excellent songs as well. And Girls Who Are Wizards, it's mainly Facing Oblivion to Become the Lodestar. That track really stands out to me. There's one track that I would put up on that pedestal right now, and it's a pretty obvious one, but yeah, I'm sure it'll grow. I'm sure they'll find their place, the songs that I will connect with. But for now, there aren't too many songs on this album that I would consider like excellent. Great, good, yeah, absolutely. There's lots of great songs on this album, but I probably just haven't had enough time to fully appreciate it all yet. So with that being said, I don't actually remember what the next track is. Wonka X Howl, maybe? One of those. I think there's a couple songs that come after Falling in Love with the Corporate Illustration that I just don't really remember right now. Tell you what, I need to take my hoodie off because it's hot out here. And in that time, I can go ahead and look at the track list, and I can catch myself up on the references that I'm not remembering right now. So, okay, I'm gonna get these out of the way real quick so that I don't forget them. the first track, the first line where she says something like, you know, I bet you hate to hear me sound like this. That's a reference to You're Not a Real Musician, the first track on Can Opener's Notebook, previous album of hers. And then there's a sample of the piano bit from Imitation Game, which is a song off of Cutie Marks. And then there's multiple references in the title track, as you would expect, including a reference to the Creek Flow EP, which is kind of a shitpost of an EP, so that's funny. Anyway, yeah, after Corporate Illustration is Wonka X Howl. I don't have much to say about that song right now. It's fine. Then another interlude, and then Webpunk, the second single, which is, I think, the lesser of the singles, but it is a good song. And I think it's kind of an interesting showcase of the balancing act that Vylet does with quite a few of these songs, because Webpunk, throughout much of the song, is like standard kind of electro-pop music. It's pretty soft and digestible, if you can call it that. Like, it fit very neatly into like top of the Billboard charts. I think digestible is a perfect word for it. And then near the end, you get a dubstep drop, which is intentionally supposed to be a bit more abrasive, a bit more energetic of a sound. And I think it would have been very easy to make that like a jarring shift, but she walks that fucking tightrope. Like, listening to that track, I can feel the tension between those two songs, but it doesn't like snap. I think it just barely slots right into the sound palette of that track, which excellently done, to be honest. What comes after Webpunk? I was looking at the track list like 2 seconds ago. I'm already forgetting. Right, I think after Webpunk is, yes. After Webpunk is Peace, Love, Glalie, which I think is a great fucking song. I think Shelley's performance on that track is a standout on the record, to be honest. I think she's a brilliant artist and a brilliant vocalist. So, yeah. And then after that, The Slow Dance, another really great song. And it's maybe one of the only, it's one of the few Vylet Pony songs that I think you could show a normie and not have them like look at you weird. But even then, that's not a guarantee, because she still has the sample of like, you know, a Call of Duty announcer in there, and there's a couple of dubstep growls in there too. Don't mind that. I get a little bit ahead of myself sometimes. So it's just kind of an interesting thing Vylet does. She almost seems to defy the idea of her music being like for normies or appreciated by normies, even though she's definitely delving into a sound that would be familiar to and enjoyed by, you know, a large, broad audience. She's always doing something that would kind of deter a larger audience. It's really interesting. This isn't a diss, by the way. If anything, I admire the shit out of it. You know, she's not aiming to be mainstream, and you know, I don't know if you'd want to be honest. The music industry sounds like hell. And she's kind of living the artist's dream right now, just doing her own fucking thing and being pretty fucking damn successful by the looks of it. But she's been in the game for a while. It's all about the game, baby. and she's worked hard to get to where she is, clearly. So I think she deserves the recognition and the popularity that she has. Anyway, after the slow dance, no, that's not the second interlude yet. After the slow dance is another track. I'm forgetting these names. I'm not gonna go back. The track that comes after slow dance, it's fine. It's another more experimental piece, so I haven't digested a lot of it yet. It definitely like switches between styles more, and it's definitely interesting. I think it's good, but I just can't give too much of an impression on it right now. Same with I know the title has something to do with lightning. The thunder. I don't want to call it like the Thunderbolt, because then I'm just talking about the Marvel movie. Song's fine. Haven't listened to it a ton. Moving on to the stuff that's really quite important to me at the moment, because again, I'm sure these songs will grow. But that being said, there's the interlude, and then there's Walking Beside a Dragonfly, which is gonna be the most typical fucking choice of a favorite song off the album. But listen, alright, that song is fucking gorgeous. I almost want to be a contrarian and say like, well, it's pretty cliche to have a song that sounds like this, right? Like, oh, you're doing a big epic soft ballad, wowee, so predictable. But I feel like I need to make sure that part of my brain doesn't influence my thoughts too much. And I feel like I should just appreciate the song for what it is, which is a gorgeous track. It's so good. And what's really funny about that track is that I referenced Can Opener's Notebook recently. I listened to that album for the first time very recently. And she did it again. I thought that Vylet Pony had like created new pathways in my brain enough. I thought she was done. Monarch of Monsters, like, that album is at this point very important to me. I think it's a fucking brilliant piece of art. I think about it a lot. I compare a lot of other music to it these days. Just like, yeah, it introduced me to Vylet Pony. It made me think about, you know, some of the things in my life, and it's just expanded my musical horizons just a little bit. At the same time, you know, it's definitely more in my wheelhouse of music. That experimental rock sound, that prog sound, that stuff I'm fairly accustomed to. So it's things like Girls Who Are Wizards and Cutie Marks that like really expanded my palette for music, because it's what got me into the electronic sound. It's what got me into the electropop sound, made me appreciate dubstep more, stuff like that. And Cutie Marks, like, I was obsessed with that album for a good chunk of time, and I'll have a deep dive of that album done someday. I kind of stopped working on it because I've just got a lot of other stuff going on right now. But yeah, after that, it's like, all right, so this is what Vylet Pony does, and I'm content with that. And then I listened to Can Opener's Notebook. It's like, oh, okay, she also does this, and she also does it brilliantly, because of course. I think Can Opener's Notebook, while not having, like, I would call most of the songs just, like, good, But as a collective piece of music, that album is something else, man. It's fucking gorgeous. And there's a few songs on that album that I think are brilliant. Hippogriff Festival. That song did things to me. And so, with that in mind, Walking Beside the Dragonfly sounds a lot like Can Opener's Notebook. And so it was just kind of interesting, I guess you could call it, listening to that album and becoming enamored with that sound, and then hearing it again in this track. It's almost like I was being made ready for this. And so that is the track that on an initial listen I appreciated the most out of all of them. Beautiful, beautiful fucking song. And then after that is Jester, which is another fantastic song. After that, I don't remember. Well, okay. I don't like to pause at a time like this because I'm still going through the album's songs, but I feel like I also need to find a way to navigate home because I took a turn to avoid someone on the sidewalk, kind of half hoping it would be turning into a place that I know, but I wasn't. So okay, so the songs after the slow dance are The Catcher, The Comet Catcher and the Reekfish, and Lightning Bolt, or what they're called. And then after Jester is Live, Laugh, Love 2, a song that I would just need to listen to more, but I have a feeling that it could really grow on me. And then after that, I had it. Right, okay. Digital Flower Field. Digital Flower Field. I think that's a really good song. And it's also the song that I referenced earlier that references the second verse of Cutie Marks. There's a place in your mind where every dream resides. Let it out, scream and shout. It's your own damn life. That one. Stated verbatim on that song. And I so eject because admittedly that's the kind of shit I was hoping for. References and like callbacks like that are my shit. I love it. It's my weakness, much like nostalgia. And so yeah, I saw that line and I was very, very pleased. Then after Digital Flower Field is The Last Interlude. Oh yeah, Digital Flower Field, good song, I can't remember much of it. Then there's The Last Interlude, followed by the title track, which is another one that's going to take some time to process because it's 10 minutes long. And it's a lot of dubstep drops and shit. What I can say is that I'm glad Vylet Pony got a man with like a deep, powerful voice to chant hooves up in like an electro-pop dubstep song. That's brilliant. I'm happy for that. The outro of that song is beautiful. And that's the most I can say about it at the moment. Again, it isn't quite what I was expecting, but that's okay. And then there's the bonus track, which is a song. That's one that I don't have much expectation of growing to love or anything. I feel like that's going to be one of those songs that'll just kind of be there. And I'll have to decide how I feel about it like as a perspective finale to the album, because like it's labeled bonus track, but like that there's no release of this album without the bonus track. So do we just consider that facetious and say it's the final track, or do we just kind of ignore it for the sakes of talking about the like ending of the album? Because how I've always said is that oftentimes albums like to end with, you know, the big climax. But that's not always the case. The example that comes to mind right now is Ghost Reveries by Opeth. The penultimate track is the 10-minute long The Grand Conjuration, which is basically anything you could ever want from a middle era Opeth song. Tons of great riffs, the growling, the heaviness, all the works. I think the climax outro to that song is terrific. Perfect climax to the album. The last track is Isolation Years, which is a soft, like purely sung, kind of simple track. Kind of meant to wind you down. I think of it as if we're using like the story structure thing. There's the climax and then there's the falling action, which would be Isolation Years. Or the bonus track for Love and Ponystep, debatably. The thing is, I like Isolation Years, and I think it's just an engaging song on its own. And I don't find the bonus track to Love and Ponystep very engaging. So, yeah, I just don't know where I stand on that. But that is kind of segue into a thing I wanted to talk about regarding this album. So, Vylet Pony, there's a person walking up ahead of me. Motherfucker. How am I supposed to talk about Vylet Pony at a time like this? They're gonna think I'm a weirdo freak. Damn it. I don't actually know what they're doing, but yeah, I'm probably just gonna pause this one for a bit. Toodaloo. Okay, kind of looked like that guy was just pacing around in his yard, which can't say I've never done it. Maybe he just needed a breather. Who knows? Also, I just passed by a van that said Transmed on the side of it. I think it'd be cool if it said trans men. I'm just saying. Shoutouts to trans men. Right, Vylet Pony. So, Vylet Pony is currently my favorite artist, unequivocally. And it's funny because last year my favorite artist was kind of up in the air, because for a long time it was Between the Buried and Me. But then after Caligula's Horse, his 2024 release, Charcoal Grace, I was wondering if maybe they were my favorite group. And then, you know, Vylet Pony happened. And Monarch of Monsters became my favorite album of that year. And then Monarch of Monsters became my favorite album ever. And I grew to love her other works. I really liked Girls Who Are Wizards. I had a weird relationship with Carousel, but I grew to love it. And it was around the time when I started really listening to and appreciating Cutie Marks that I was thinking like, okay, I like Vylet Pony, my favorite artist now. And I think if anything, Love and Ponystep has bolstered that position, because it's like, oh, well, look at that. Another really good release from her. Because despite not fully connecting with it yet, there's a lot here that I like. And it's just as ambitious, if not more so, than any of her other projects. I think she sticks the landing, even if I want to like be really critical and say there were a couple fumbles. So yeah, favorite artist. And I like discovered her through Monarch of Monsters. So that was the first thing I heard from her. I learned pretty quickly that this isn't what she typically does, because, you know, I think it's natural to see this album pop up, listen to it, think it's really interesting, and go, okay, what else has this person made? And I see that she's made like brony music. It's like, oh, okay. It wasn't in a judgmental way. Okay, maybe at first I was a little put off by it, but that's pretty, I don't think that judgment ever got far, because, you know, I was listening to Monarch of Monsters and thinking like, this is like good and not at all what you'd fucking expect from a brony artist. That being said, I did discover her through that, and my first impression was her dark experimental prog rock album. And it makes sense that that would be my first exposure to her, because that's the kind of music that I'm used to and that I like. I, for years now, have been entrenched in metal and prog metal, and have had plenty of like delves into some of the lighter prog rock, but that's just it. I was never into like pop or hip hop or electronic music or any of that. It was just foreign to me, basically, until I listened to Vylet Pony. Not for lack of trying on my friend Alex's part. They've tried to get me into Death Grips and it hasn't worked. Death Grips just doesn't do it for me. Sorry to say. I respect them. I think it's cool what they're doing. I just don't connect with it at all. So, yeah, I'm a metalhead, I guess you could say. I'm kind of in that prog rock space, and I am a cisgender male. Now, hear me out. I think me being a cisgender male does not disqualify me from being able to enjoy Vylet's music. Like, obviously I do enjoy Vylet's music. I enjoy it a lot. I enjoy it more than anybody else's music, right? And, you know, I don't believe in completely disqualifying someone from enjoying a song. I think even if a person just completely misses the point of a song, like, I don't know, if any conservative were to play a Rage Against the Machine song and say, yeah, this fucking slaps, I'd look at them weird, but like, I don't know. They're allowed to enjoy it. I just say, like, please, for the love of God, someone tell them what the lyrics mean. That being said, it's become especially apparent through Love and Ponystep that Vylet's music is not necessarily made for me. And again, that doesn't mean I can't enjoy it. That doesn't mean that, like, she's a bad person for not catering to my tastes. Obviously not. She's just doing whatever the fuck she wants. And that's awesome. That's rad. Even if I didn't like her music, I would hope that I would believe that she should keep doing what she's doing. Well, actually, you know what? If Death Grips still existed, rest in peace, I think they should still keep making music like that, even though it's clearly not made for me. I guess it's just like useful to keep those things in mind when evaluating a piece of art, because I look at the pieces of Love and Ponystep that don't work for me, And I think, well, why is that? And a lot of it is because I'm not accustomed to the sounds of hip-hop. There's elements of dubstep and electronic music that I'm not accustomed to yet. I'm the guy who likes Monarch of Monsters, and to be honest, I feel like part of the reason for Love and Ponystep's existence, many of which there are, one of them is to kind of let people know who, you know, learned about Vylet Pony from Monarch of Monsters that this is who she is. This is what she does. She makes this like energetic, rambunctious, happy electronic music as opposed to the dark edginess of Monarch. I think there's a reason why the opening track opens with her saying, "I bet you hate when I sound like this." Or, again, that's not the exact line. It's something like that. She's making sure that people know that she's not going to be doing Monarch again here, and she doesn't give a fuck if people don't like that. And of course, when I say that it's music not made for me, there's other aspects to that too. I think this album, her work definitely speaks on universal experiences. I think most art does. But I also think a lot of art, especially a lot of great art, speaks on pretty specific like elements of the human experience, and then from there you can draw more broad universal things. And I think that a lot of Vylet Pony's music speaks on experiences that I'm not very familiar with. I get the sense that a lot of Vylet Pony's music is written, well, okay, it's kind of a stupid thing to say. It's written, you know, from the experience of a trans woman, because she is a trans woman. All of her experiences are through that lens, but you really feel that in the music a lot with some of the messages and some of the like direct lyrics. There's a couple times in the album when it's stated that this one's for the girls, and I'm not a girl. It doesn't bother me. It's an interesting kind of thing I have with it, to be honest. Like, I'm almost allured by the differentness, by the knowledge that this album wasn't strictly made for me, and there's going to be a lot about it that isn't meant to speak to me. But, you know, at the same time, a lot of it doesn't speak to me, and that might be an obstacle in fully connecting with the album. So it's just an interesting dichotomy there. And that's even present in, you know, Monarch. Like, the big thing with me and that album is that I'm fortunate enough to not be the victim of prolonged sexual violence. I'm gonna have to put another fucking trigger warning at the beginning of this episode. That's fine. It's no big deal. I'll do it. But in case you don't want to hear about it, here it is. I'm going to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it in depth, but, you know, I know mentions of it can put people at unease. So I was assaulted once. It wasn't... The problem with saying it wasn't so bad is because I know that's a thing that people who have been traumatized say. One of the symptoms of trauma is saying that you don't have trauma. Obviously, it was a bad thing. And it did affect me. At the same time, it didn't affect me incredibly profoundly. And I don't need to get any more detailed than that. I guess I have a tendency to like look at what was actually done to me and compare it to what's actually done to other people. And I have a tendency to say like, oh, it could have been way worse. Could have, but like, what's more important is the effect that it had on me. And it did have an effect on me. It's just, now I feel like I can pretty openly talk about it, and it doesn't bother me as much these days, which is good. So that being said, I have like an understanding, like a surface level understanding of some of the themes that Monarch of Monsters is about and some of the experiences that it speaks on. But I definitely am not entrenched in that world and in those experiences that it paints. There are things that I feel like I am entrenched in and that I really connect with, like, the stuff about depression and having to learn to love yourself and having to learn to accept love from another person. Having someone come into your life and completely altering your view on yourself and just love in general. Like, hey, that's happened to me. But the themes of sexual violence are very pervasive throughout that album, and I just can't connect with that the same way. And again, it's never stopped me from appreciating the album, and I'm glad it's in there. I'm glad that it's something that she can talk about and that other people can connect with. It's just, something to keep in mind. I wouldn't even say I'm envious. Well, I'm definitely not envious because, connecting with that aspect more means going through experiences that are really, really horrifying and traumatic. And I hope I go the rest of my life not being able to, connect that aspect of the album. So no, I'm not envious. It's just something I try to keep in mind when evaluating an album because, it's just good to have that perspective. It's just good to understand why certain things might not work for you or, something like that. I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about art in that way lately, I feel like. And it's something CJ the X talks about in their video on Antonymph. A big part of their point is that Antonymph is a piece of art that kind of treats them as an outsider. It treats a lot of people as an outsider. It's a song kind of meant for an in-group, which is a little bit ironic considering it became her most popular song. But the idea is that, like, you shouldn't look to art exclusively as something that you can connect with and personally relate to. You should experience art that challenges you or that has aspects of it that are foreign to you, or even pieces of art that just completely go over your head. Like I watched Sinners a little while back. I wouldn't be able to tell you when. It wasn't like release day. I didn't go to the theater or anything. What happened is the Morbid Zoo released a video on it. I started watching it and she said, "This film is really fucking good. Go watch it." And so I did. And I watched it and I enjoyed it. And I felt like I was picking up on some of the themes. And then I watched the Morbid Zoo's video on it, and I was consistently thinking, wow, I didn't even think of that. So evidently that is not a movie that I connected with much. And I think that makes sense considering I am Caucasian. That movie is speaking on like Black experiences, which is something that I obviously don't have any, like, hardly any understanding of. And so it's not a movie that was really made for me. And that's fine. Not every piece of art is going to be made for you. And frankly, not every piece of art should be made for you. But you also shouldn't let that prevent you from enjoying or like appreciating what that piece of art is doing. And so when talking about Love and Ponystep, I enjoy it a lot. And I'm sure I'll come to enjoy it even more the more I listen to it. But I recognize that it's not strictly made for me, and there's a lot of elements in it that are going to be foreign to me and that I'm just not going to be able to connect with as well because of, you know, the experiences I've had and the proclivities that I have for certain pieces of music. It's just the way it is. Just how it be. I don't entirely know what the point of all that was, but like, you know what? There was no point. I'm just talking about my experience with the album, and this is what the album made me think about. There you go. And it's one of my favorite things about Vylet Pony and her music is that it makes me think. It kind of makes me reflect on my life. You know what? It did that. Fuck. I thought I was wrapping up. I'll be wrapping up. It's late, and I'm approaching my apartment. You know, it's just kind of interesting that Vylet Pony released an album that features a character trying to get over someone, hating the fact that she can't. And having to learn that this issue, along with many others, stems from her low self-esteem, her deep sense of loathing for herself, and that, like, hating that part of her is not going to help. And it's only through accepting you as you are and all these disparate aspects of you that you can learn to, like, manage these issues. Yeah, it's just interesting that that piece of art came into my life at this time. Because I suppose, you know, with this going on the YouTube channel, there's not going to be much context behind this, but just the past few months, I've been dealing with something similar. It wasn't like a breakup with a romantic partner or anything, but I just had complicated feelings about someone that I have been trying to manage. And for a while, I didn't do a very good job of it because I just kind of shat on myself for it. I hated that I was feeling that way. I hated myself for it. And I wanted to just excise that part of myself, just be completely rid of it. I think part of me is still trying to do that. I hate feeling jealous. I don't want to feel jealous anymore. And it's incredibly hard to accept that might just be something that I deal with the rest of my life. And then again, I came to accept that depression is something that I'm just going to be dealing with my whole life. So maybe that'll just take time. But the album reminded me that I can't hate myself into the person that I want to be. I'm stealing that, by the way. That isn't my quote. I'm pretty sure it came from a Tumblr post. So I wish I could give credit, but I don't know. I can't hate myself into a version of me that I love, or something like that. It is very true. But I was so caught up in my jealousy and so caught up in wanting to be rid of it that I forgot that, and I hated myself anyway. Yeah, Love and Ponystep reminded me that I need to be gentle and to be kind, especially to myself, especially in these moments of distress and confusion. It goes for all of you too, by the way. Love yourselves, you freaks. I think that'll be all from me for tonight. Maybe I'll talk about Can Opener's Notebook next time. I don't know. We'll see what the future holds. I may not know what the future holds, but hear me when I say, the past does not define me, because the past is not today. That's Girls Who Are Wizards, the title track. Peace.